This is no was in here. Right now. Sorry, hang on. Let's try that again. Greetings and welcome to this edition of
Positronic.
I'm Barry P. Cook. I want to talk to you about the latest episode of Superman and Lois. The episode was called The Thing in the Mines. And as it begins, Superman is above the earth monitoring things, and he hears activity, I guess, everywhere, but also at the mine, at which point he heads there, only to get another vision as he's making his way there, as he's almost there, and he falls out of the sky again, like he did before. Meanwhile, the Kent boys are having a talk about Jordan's girlfriend, Sarah, and Natalie joins them, telling them not to be too hard on her for keeping a secret, given, that Jordan's got a secret. We see Lana next, and she is stressing out about the viability of her mayoral candidacy. Back to Jordan, we see that he wants to tell Sarah all about his family, but Clark says that he can't, and he almost loses his cool, actually, in a terse sort of back and forth with Jordan, and his eyes all light up and he almost zaps him. After which Jordan talks with his girlfriend awkwardly, but doesn't actually disclose anything. Lana, meanwhile, is holding a campaign event and it doesn't really go well. People don't receive her very well and they give her a hard time. John and his girlfriend have a chat and he learns that one of his teammates is taking drugs and that he's doping, basically. And at this point, I'm thinking there's already too much kid stuff in this episode. It's only 14 minutes in, and basically we're just seeing these kids have these conversations. But now we go back to Clark, and he ends up having to discipline Jonathan for fighting with teammates after he's told that his girlfriend has been the one selling the drugs to his teammate. And at that point, Clark ends up actually having a meltdown that causes him to have to set off his I-beams into his own hands. So I guess he gets so worked up, he can't stop himself from shooting his I-beams, so he shoots them into his own hands, not to hurt anybody or destroy any property. Upon arriving home after this, Clark explains that he's feeling near uncontrollable anger that isn't his own, that is coming from somewhere else. And John tries to find the cause of it, find out what's happening in the mind, what's down there that's making Clark experience this stuff. Because as we know from last week, it's coming from another being, which Clark reinforces in this episode by saying it's not his own anger. When Clark then bemoans his situation and says it feels like the end of the world, Lois tells him not to get all doomsday on her. Down in the mines, the Department of Defense operative who's there attacks John as he's investigating the situation. Now we come to the 33-minute mark of the episode, and we haven't seen Superman again since the beginning, still. So, and we saw him for about 2 minutes. So I'm starting to get really annoyed at this point. Next, Clark gets Jordan to agree to wait a year on the idea of telling Sarah anything. So that was good, I guess. It resolved that little plot point. Sarah, meanwhile, has a conversation with Lana about her girl kiss at camp and talks about how she's worried she won't be forgiven. And Lana tells her that if that happens, he doesn't deserve her, which I agree with. Clark then has another vision attack in which he kind of sees the thing in the mine escaping. And he flies off to go to the mine and, I don't know, prevent it from escaping, confront it, whatever. And he gets there as the entity in the mine, which is an iron-suited being, flies out of the mine just as he saw in his vision and starts to go on a rampage. Superman fights him, but he kind of gets his clock cleaned, despite John attacking it after epically jumping into his suit as it arrives on autopilot from the farm. So John was there doing an investigation. He comes out of the mine after he gets menaced, I guess, by the DOD lady, and he sees Superman fighting this entity, and he wants to help, so he calls for his suit, kind of like a Tony Stark moment, and the suit comes to the location from the Clark barn where it's being held, and he kind of like runs up this little ramp that's in the middle of the quarry outside the mine, or whatever it is, the area outside the mine, and kind of jumps into the air a little bit, and the suit kind of just arrives at that moment and envelops him a la Iron Man. It was pretty cool, actually. But it doesn't really do too much, other than, I mean, it doesn't like really wound the entity or hurt the entity. It just kind of distracts him from Clark, and it did break its helmet a little bit. So we see that the humanoid inside is someone that looks kind of like Clark, kind of like Superman, and it would seem to be Bizarro. Not Doomsday, but Bizarro. So we've been switcherooed here, folks. Superman and John then decide to go after his twin without waiting for DOD help or anything, without, you know, the fake Kryptonians, for example. After they agree that it's not, because we know it's Bizarro, they don't know that. They agree that it's not Kal-El from John's world. More evidence that it's Bizarro. Lois, I guess, this whole time has been preparing to meet her sister, and she's apprehensive about it. They've kind of retconned Lucy Lane's whole character, it would seem, because, you know, in Supergirl, she was in the military, she was a confident, accomplished person, and in this, she's kind of not that. She's someone who's lost everything. She's someone who, I guess, got duped by kind of a swindler, and she and Lois are estranged, which wasn't the case when she appeared on Superman. That, of course, was before Crisis, so anything could have happened. And at the moment, this is what we have. So Lois is preparing to meet her, but she's apprehensive about it. Lana goes ahead and does an Ask Me Anything session from her kitchen while she's cooking, with Sarah holding the camera. I guess it's an online Ask Me Anything, to try to improve her election chances, as Jordan arrives at the house to give Sarah a gift, which is a family heirloom locket, and they sort of make up. He says, you know, I'm sorry I reacted so badly, it's fine, I still want to be with you, and she kind of says the same thing, and everything's hunky-dory, which, yay. Jonathan then goes to visit his girlfriend. We're thinking to confront her about selling the other guy drugs, but he's there to buy some from her. So now he wants in on the doping, on the chemical enhancement, as it were, which is concerning. When Lois shows up at the restaurant where she was supposed to meet Lucy, it turns out that someone else is there in her stead, and it's the charlatan person, apparently, that Lois had done the story about, and that Lucy had apparently lost everything to at one point. So we're going to have to wait, I guess, a little longer to see the Superman and Lois version of Lucy Lane. Right before the episode ends, Evil Clark / Bizarro arrives at the Fortress of Solitude and says something, but it's backwards, so we don't really know what he says. I guess we'd have to try to play it backwards, but yeah. So he somehow knows where the Fortress of Solitude is. But that's really the whole episode, and I didn't think much of it. I really didn't. I'm glad that we got to see who the enemy is, but I'm not a big fan of how they kind of dragged out this whole Clark's getting visions thing. I guess it was only 2 episodes, but like, really? Really? It should have been resolved sooner. They basically took Superman out of the Superman show over the last 2 episodes. This episode, more than the previous one, he's literally like just not in it, except for one fight scene and one scene before that where he falls out of the sky. So wasn't a big fan of that. Not a huge fan of the, and I say this every week, I just have to keep repeating it because it keeps happening. Not a big fan of how much time they spend focusing on the kids as if the show is Dawson's Creek. Like, you know, I might watch a Dawson's Creek show, but this is not supposed to be that. This is supposed to be Superman, but it's Dawson's Creek, apparently. And on top of that, they're showing us this campaign stuff with Lana. And again, the actress is great. She does a great job with what they're giving her. The stuff they're giving her is interesting for her character. It's you know, it speaks to the human condition. It's worthwhile content, and she sure as hell isn't hard to look at. But why is it in a Superman show? Like make that show, if you want. It doesn't have to be about Lana, it doesn't have to be in the DC universe, but make that show about this woman and her family, and she's running for mayor and she has a daughter and all that stuff. Make that show. I might watch it. I don't want it. It doesn't belong in my Superman show. I want Superman in my Superman show. So I don't know. Maybe we'll get, I don't know. I don't know what the plan is. Maybe as things progress with the Bizarro, we're going to see more Superman. We're going to see more action. That's why I put on a Superman show. So I don't know. Didn't think very much of this episode, but I'm going to watch the next one, and I will be back with a review of that episode after it airs. Until then, I wish you all peace and long life.